Every summer, thousands of teenagers flock to Florida's Disney World to pit their homemade robots against each other in what has become Epcot Center's largest ever annual event. It's the Olympics, Gladiator Games, and Demolition Derby all rolled into one exciting, challenging, nail-biting extravaganza. And in a minute, we're going to tell you all about it.
Hi, I'm Michael Gillen, and I'm here to tell you all about the first National Robotics Competition. Now, it's called that because, in part, it is, in fact, the first and only robot contest of its kind in the world, and also because it's sponsored by the FIRST Foundation, based right here in Manchester, New Hampshire. That's FIRST, as in for inspiration and recognition of science and technology.
Robots have become incredibly popular lately, with small-scale competitions springing up in cities all over the country, and mean-looking robots dueling it out to the death on national television.
But FIRST is the oldest, largest, and in my opinion as a scientist and educator, most important robot competition around. Now, I say that because it inspires kids not just to triumph, but to learn, to figure out how to build a winning robot, and in the process, a winning attitude towards science and technology. Amazingly, this year, the first competition will involve more than 500 teams of kids from all over the country. And we're not just talking techno-geeks here. Far from it. Some of the kids do actually design, build, and test the robots. But others keep a daily journal of the team's progress, for example, or find a corporate sponsor, or drum up support from their parents, teachers, and community. In other words, FIRST attracts kids with all kinds of interests and abilities. Now, in this show, we're going to be following three very different teams, different in size, gender, race, socioeconomic status, resources, talents, experience. In short, our three teams are about as diverse as America gets.
The first team is from the inner city, the Leopards of Booker T. Washington School for Engineering Professions in Houston, Texas. This is a veteran team. The Leopards have competed in FIRST before and have high hopes of bringing home their first FIRST championship. Our second team hails from the suburbs, the Terminators of Cypress Falls High School just outside of Houston. They've never been to FIRST before, but their school has run small-scale robot games for years. Our third team is from the Choctaw Indian Reservation in Philadelphia, Mississippi. The Warriors of Choctaw Central High are rookies. They've never competed in any kind of robot game whatsoever. What's more, the Warriors are the first and only Native American team ever to compete in FIRST, and they really want to make a good showing. The first season always starts when world-famous inventor Dean Kamen, the founder of FIRST, huddles in secret with MIT engineer Woody Flowers and a group of advisors. Their mission? To make every year's competition even more challenging than the last. Back in 1992, the first ever FIRST competition was called the Maze Craze. Robots had to move tennis balls around a maze made out of corn kernels. This year's challenge is being called Diabolical Dynamics, and here's why. Teams or alliances of 4 robots will play what I think is a kind of cross between robot basketball and football. This is the playing field, and like in basketball, there are 2 goals, one here and one on the far end. Now, the idea is to sink as many of these balls as you can in just 2 minutes. You get extra points if you top the whole thing off with one of these colored balls, and also if you manage to drag a goal full of balls onto this teeter-totter bridge and try to get the whole thing to balance out. As in football, you also get extra points if the robots end up at the far end zone. It isn't going to be easy, but then that's why they call it diabolical. Like always, this year's competition begins in January at a much-anticipated kickoff event, simulcast from Manchester, New Hampshire. Representative members from nearly 500 teams across the country are about to get their first look at this year's diabolical challenge. Right away, team leaders start poring over the new rule book, trying to get a handle on the tricky parts of the game. What's more, each team is presented with an identical box of parts that include motors, wheels, connectors, a kind of care package to help the kids build their robot. The Leopards are hot to trot. To get a jump on the competition, they've recruited adult coaches and mentors long before the kickoff. So now, with rule book in hand, they hit the ground running. As in years past, one of their major corporate supporters, the engineering firm of Kellogg, Brown & Root, has donated space in their enormous, well-equipped machine shop. For the next 6 weeks, the kids and their coaches will spend most of their spare time here. It will be their home away from home. The Leopards begin by setting up a mock-up of the Diabolical Dynamics arena. Next, before they even think about designing their robot, they meet with head coach Chris McGuffey and start analyzing the game.
Heads up. Did anybody pick up anything a little bit different than maybe you were thinking coming in? That was just 2 big balls.
With 40 members, the team is large enough to split up the workload. Each work group is assigned a different chore. One will design the robot's main body, its chassis. A second group will design the robot's all-important ball handling arm. A third group will work on the electrical systems with Steve Alanese, the Leopard's crack electronics mentor. A fourth group still will be in charge of writing a journal about the team's day-to-day progress. The Leopards hope their journal will win the Chairman's Award for Outstanding Team Documentation.
I thought we were writing an essay and just sticking it in a book somewhere.
A fifth group is put in charge of producing a short, animated movie that stars their robot in some kind of fictional situation.
The robots are going to be clearing mines off of a beach and disposing of them in barrels.
Meanwhile, a sixth work group is put in charge of making sure everything runs smoothly, coordinating everything from meetings to meals. Lucia Sevchek is their chief coordinator and the team's surrogate mom and head cheerleader.
All of that stuff they need now, and it hasn't been ordered, okay? So can you do that? Okay, thanks.
Since the Leopards have competed before, they have the distinct advantage of using last year's robot to get in some early practice. By midweek, the chassis work group led by Chris has come up with 2 possible designs for the robot's basic framework and is already building prototypes. The same with the mechanical arm group. They too have already come up with a couple of possible designs. Samara, one of the few girls involved in the actual building of the robot, is in charge of the pneumatics work group. They've come up with a design for an air-powered mechanical hand. It's a kind of grappling hook that'll be used to drag a goal full of balls onto the bridge for extra points.
The engineers, they aid us, or if they'll kind of clean up our concept, but it's student designed and student built.
The Leopards must also come up with a device to raise and lower the bridge.
Okay, let me just ask you something strange. As you figure out your leverage and your weight, what if as you push that down, the robot comes up instead of the ramp going down?
That's why we're prototyping.
Meanwhile, the electronics group led by Steve struggles with the complexities of the robot's central nervous system.
Does that make it look pretty at night?
It does.
With all the different machines at their disposal here at Kellogg, Brown & Root, the Leopards can build just about any robot part they might possibly need. It's not surprising that at the end of the first week, the Leopards have made a lot of progress. They and their mentors and coaches have all worked hard, and for the most part, everyone is in high spirits.
If they make it out of aluminum, it's going to be 10 pounds.
If you made it solid out of that 16th inch aluminum plate.
Week 2 is a different story. There's lots of brainstorming and not as much progress. But it's not because the work groups are running out of ideas, just the opposite. They've racked up a bunch of ideas and just aren't deciding which ones to go with. The Leopards are like kids in a candy shop, facing a dazzling array of possible designs. 2 for the robot's body, 3 for the mechanical hands that'll grip balls, and 2 that'll grip the goal. To make matters worse, the electronics group, too, is contemplating a huge number of possibilities for the robot's motor controls. Bottom line, the leopards have to fish or cut bait. Head coach Chris calls a meeting and makes a suggestion.
We obviously know we've got some issues with that particular design. Most of it revolves around the size of the wheel. We put this chassis together talking about a tread design with your 2 sprockets here, 2 other sprockets here, and the 10-inch wheels. We think we can go to a basically one chassis with 2 different drive combinations. Does everybody think that's... Anybody got any... That sound all right?
They still have a lot of choices to make, but at least now they have a plan. 800 miles away at the Choctaw Indian Reservation, the Warriors have been holding daily meetings at their school's NASA Resource Center. Patricia Overstreet is their team coordinator.
Finish the sentence. If we don't go and we don't score any points, have we still won?
The fact that we tried.
Thank you. That's important. The fact that we
learning
tried.
experience.
Learning experience, accomplish hard work. Let's make it into a sentence.
They don't know how to write sentences.
Taking chances.
The Warriors are 1/4 the size of the Leopards.
No, we haven't.
They know the odds are against them, but the Warriors are determined to press ahead. For the past few weeks, with all their box of parts spread out on a table, the Warriors have been using good old-fashioned paper and pencil to work out the design of their robot.
Sounds good.
For now, they're using a cardboard model to work out the details of their robot's basket-shaped mechanical arm, which will be used for picking up balls. When it comes to actually building the robot, there's a major problem. Choctaw High School has no technical arts program and therefore no on-campus machine facility. The Warriors' only hope is a tribal-owned machine shop 3 miles away at Choctaw Electronics. They've offered to build a robot for the kids, but for safety reasons will not let the Warriors themselves onto the premises.
That's been a big frustration for them, not being able to build, not being able to get in the machine shops, but it's made them work a little bit harder with their ideas and, find out what's going on at the machine shop, calling over there, checking to see, making sure that their ideas are being used.
While the Warriors wait for the robot to be built, they spend their time building a regulation-sized goal and bridge. Finally, when the robot chassis arrives from the machine shop, they immediately start teaching themselves how to drive it. This being a whole new experience for the Warriors, they have some trouble making the robot go where it should. But they don't give up. They keep plugging away for several days. And after a few mishaps, they start getting the hang of it. With the robot's underlying framework finished and working, the next major things that need building are the robot's upper body and mechanical arm. But once again, it means sending their design off to the machine shop and waiting helplessly until it's done. The Leopards have come a long way at the end of 3 weeks. The robot chassis is nearly finished, the goal-grabbing mechanical hand is well underway, and 2 different ball-grabbing arms are under construction. As the various work groups plug away, Therese continues to document their progress for the Chairman's Award Journal, and Brian interviews some of his teammates for their video diary.
This is my first year, and I don't really know anything. So I kind of help wherever help is needed, and that's it.
So you're having fun on the team?
Oh, yeah, it's fun.
Is that your goal for this team, to get top quarter?
Well, of course the goal is to get number 1, but if you can't, top quarter is still pretty good.
Meanwhile, the animation team is so far along on their project, they'll soon be able to send it off to first headquarters for judging. By now, the Leopards have spent hundreds of hours working on their project. And though they're humming along with so much togetherness, some of the kids start to get on each other's nerves. So Lucia, the team surrogate mom, is forced to step in.
Time out. Why are you guys, if Jerry agrees to it, can you accept it? No, I'm asking. Y'all can't.
Everyone can use some time out, so the Leopards take a break from work and chill out together. It's already the start of week 4, halfway to building deadline. And out in the suburbs, the Terminators are barely getting started. What's more, they're a tiny team, only 5 boys, all of them students in Richard Gilbert's shop class.
We just got into it, went to a little kickoff at NASA, I believe, had a kickoff, and where we found out that one of our boxes was still in Kentucky.
The Terminators are dragging up the rear for a couple of reasons. One, their school only recently found out about FIRST, so they signed up at the last minute. And 2, for years, Mr. Gilbert has been running a small robot competition of his own. The Terminators had to finish that before they were allowed to start in on FIRST.
This is the first day that we've had to work on just our robot. They've been required to build that other smaller in-class robot, and so now we're working during class time. All before, it was 5:30 in the morning to 7:30, and then after school.
To make matters worse, it's clear right off the bat that Mr. Gilbert's small robot competition has only partially prepared the Terminators for the big leagues, for the huge complexities involved in building a sure-footed robot that can handle balls, grab a goal, and balance on an up-and-down bridge. The only good news is the Terminators do have their very own well-equipped shop. In spite of the delays, though, by the end of the 4th week, the Terminators have managed to do quite a bit of work on the robot chassis. And Thomas here is well into designing a basket-like arm for picking up balls.
Well, this is our ball basket. We're going to collect balls as we go along. I'm having to cut it down to 33 inches because there's a little... We're seeing what it'll do with 3 balls instead of 4.
About 140.
And then, so that's carrying 240 plus?
Along the way, they've also come up with, well, a unique way to test the robot's mechanical muscle.
Stop.
The Terminators are off to a decent start, but they still have a lot of catching up to do if they hope to make that 6-week deadline.
But it starts off at the slide and angle, the ball will roll out.
Okay. Now straight, yeah.
Week 5, and the Leopards are well into the final stages of construction, but they still haven't decided which chassis to go with yet. So they're building 2 different kinds at once, although right now, the one with tank-style treads seems best. They've also hit on the diabolically clever idea of making their robot a quick change artist, one whose parts can snap on and off depending on which position on the 4-robot alliance it's called upon to play. Meanwhile, Samara and the Pneumatics group is rushing to put the finishing touches on the goal-grabbing grappling hook, just before showing it off to the entire team. The Leopard strategy of dividing up the workload appears to have paid off. They've managed to create some very sophisticated robot parts in a very short time. But now, the big moment has arrived. All the separate groups must bring their individual creations together and hope they add up to one winning robot. First, they hook up one of the arms. But when they try to pick up a ball, something snaps.
Whoa, we lost something. We broke this tree.
Next, they hook up one of the robot's other arms. But when they take it for a test run, disaster strikes again.
First durability test.
Suddenly, after humming along beautifully, the Leopards are starting to feel the pressure. Technically, they still have 2 full weeks before the deadline. But next week, they've planned to host an informal scrimmage with other first teams in the Houston area, which means they have very little time to whip their malfunctioning robot into shape. At Choctaw High in Mississippi, the Warriors finally get their robot back from the machine shop, and they can't wait to put it through its paces. Joey Long, one of the engineers who did the actual construction, shows the team what he's done with their design and explains how to work the controls.
So that's what we have to watch, is not get it too far extended out, because you're going to have to pull number 3 back in.
After the briefing, the kids take turns trying their hand at driving. But since most of them have so very little experience with joysticks and remote controls, head coach Bobby Smith gives them some pointers.
Lena, are you spotting?
Now that they have an honest-to-goodness working robot, the Warriors start making plans for showing it off at a local elementary school. They have 1 week left to get everything ready, and after that, only a few days more before the 6-week robot building deadline is up.
Fixing to mount these 2 limit switches so we can control that arm won't go too far in either direction.
At Cypress Falls, the Terminators are still struggling to catch up. For one thing, their chassis is a few inches too wide. They'll have to cut it down.
We need to make it legal. It's too wide. We have to cut it off and shorten it.
Meanwhile, they're still trying to come up with some kind of mechanical arm that can grip the goal. And on top of all that, they're still not happy with their robot's ball scooper.
The scoop project didn't turn out that well. Plus we needed more room, that's why we're chopping this off to move it back. So we have a whole new design.
Talk about pressure. The Terminators are really under the gun. In just a few days, their robot is scheduled to strut its stuff in front of their parents.
And then we'll have this, like that, captured in here.
The final week has arrived, and the Leopards have spent the past several days putting the polish on their robot in preparation for today's unofficial scrimmage with neighboring first teams. The early part of the day is devoted to driving practice and last-minute repairs. For the first time, the Leopards have a chance to see what their competition will look like. Their first chance to see how the other teams have designed their robots. By the end of the day, the Leopards and everyone else have a much better idea about what they can expect, good and bad, in the upcoming official competitions. Over in the suburbs, the Terminators have managed to get the robot chassis finished just in time for their parents. The arms for scooping up balls and controlling the bridge is still not done, but this'll have to do for now. The team's parents have been very supportive since day one. But this is the first time most of them are getting to see the robot.
Brandon is the scoop man, which could act and get under that bridge if we do it right.
Some of the parents have a technical background, so they know firsthand the toughness of the challenge their kids have taken on. One parent is so experienced at electronics, he's been helping the Terminators build the robot's control system. And now he gets to show them how it works.
These are 4 relays, which are strictly on-off.
They still have a lot of problems to iron out before finishing up in the next few days. At their school on the Choctaw Reservation, the Warriors give their robot a final once-over before today's big debut at the Pearl River Elementary School. Students, teachers, and parents assemble in the gym, and when everyone settles down, Tay begins telling them about FIRST.
We are the Choctaw Central High School robotics team. It's good.
The presentation is a huge success, but the Warriors are glad it's over. They have a lot of loose ends to tie up in the 2 days left before the robot is shipped off. So they load up quickly and get back to work. The last 2 days are a blur of activity for all 3 of our teams. A complete inventory of parts has to be made. Forms filled out, shipping crates prepared, logos and decorations put on the robots.
How much is it?
At Choctaw High, the Warriors are having trouble with the inventory. Never having been allowed into the machine shop, there's some confusion about which parts were finally used in building their robot.
That's one of the difficulties of not building a robot ourselves. We don't know what the parts are, what they use, and we really just...
Finally, when the inventory is finished, the Warriors have one last and very important thing to do. With a simple ceremony, Kendall decorates their robot with the traditional ribbons and feathers befitting a Choctaw warrior going into battle. Over at Cypress Falls, the Terminators still, for the life of them, cannot get the ball scooper to work properly. So they have no choice but to ship their robot without it. In Houston, the Leopards are also having trouble with the robot's ball handlers. So, like the Terminators, they finally decide to drop them. With Anthony putting the finishing touches on the shipping crate, the Leopards carefully pack up their robot. Then, after cramming the empty spaces with all kinds of tools and other gear, they close the doors and screw it down good and tight.
See you in Florida. Let's go.
This is the last time any of the teams will see their robots until they start competing.